Welcome to DU Digimon.
Hello and welcome to DU Digimon and welcome to another deck profile. If you like this sort of content, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel and ding that notification bell so you're not missing out on any of the latest content. We started this week looking at a Royal Knight kind of deck for BT20 and we are finishing this week with a BT20 Royal Knight deck, but we're not quite looking at Royal Knights itself. Beardy Dan is working on a list for me though. Pretty damn cool. Unless he's already sent it to me. I might have to check. If he's already sent it to me, I know what I'm filming next. Anyways, this is Omnimon. Now, we talked about Omnimon back in EX8, and I did a little bit of theory crafting in that EX8 build for BT20. I've gone away, I've done some testing, and this is what I've cooked up for BT20 Omnimon. There are probably some places where we could still possibly improve it. We're always improving these lists, let's be honest. If anyone who makes a deck profile ever says this is the best list that it ever could possibly be, they are lying, because it never will be the best possible list for every scenario. But this is the best list that I can currently come up with, and I'm still working on what I can, dream up. So we've still got the Koromon as our main egg. 4 copies of this. When a card is removed from the security, you draw 1. Simple as that. Does a little bit of consistency. We've dropped down 1 copy of BT12 Ogumon, just so we can try and fit in some other bits, but reveals top 4, adds a Digimon card with Greymon or Omnimon, and 1 card with Tamer in its name, and now all of our Tamers have Tai in their name, which is quite helpful. We've also still got the 4 play cost, the 4 copies of both BT17 Ogumon and BT17 Gabumon. Both of these have that end of turn inheritable of this Digimon, and another of your Digimon may DNA Digivolve into a Digimon card in the hand. So once you've passed turn, you can then DNA into your Omnimon, do your shenanigans. It's really good. The Ogumon, start of main phase, if you've got Tai in play, it lets you grab a Greymon, Garurumon or Omnimon from your trash, and the Gabumon lets you draw a card. Both of them trigger at start of main. Then going into our 1 champion, in my original Theory Craft, I tried putting a Mechamon into this, and there were times where that was pretty cool. But in general, it kind of just got in the way of the engine, so I've ended up taking it out, and I've stuck with the 4 copies of Greymon. It's still white, which helps us with one of our options. It still counts as an Ogumon or a Gabumon, depending on what's underneath it, so you can do your warp shenanigans. It still deletes stuff. It's still just all round really good, and still is going to play out your Taikamiya Tamers. And then also bearing in mind, compared to the EX8 build we did, this build has now got only Tamers with Tai in its name, which makes that part of the deck a little bit more consistent. So that on deletion effect, which also is the inheritable, goes off a lot more. Though sometimes, like I said in the EX8 version of this build, the hatching part of that, you either hatch or play a Tamer. The hatching can sometimes be really important. Sometimes hatching is more important if you're doing that on your turn, whereas playing a Tamer out is probably more important when it's on the opponent's turn, if it gets deleted. Then going into our level 6s, 1 copy of the BT14 War Greymon and 1 copy of the Metal Garurumon from BT15. Both of them serve a similar purpose, because they both warp your Ogumons and your Garurumons for a play cost of 4, or Digivolution cost of 4, if your opponent's got a 10,000 DP or more Digimon, and you've got either Tai or Matt in play, depending on which of the 2 Digimon you're going to go into. The War Greymon gets Raid, and then it gets a pseudo Blitz, because it may attack once it's Digivolved. And if you've got a Tamer in play, doesn't matter the name, this Digimon gains Security Attack +1 and Piercing, so it does help you a little bit with some of your aggression and a little bit of kind of tempo play if you need to catch up a bit. Same goes for the Metal Garurumon, if not more so, because whereas this one's not as overtly aggressive as the War Greymon is, this one essentially it has evade for starters, so it has a little bit more longevity on the board, but when it digivolves, it's 3 of your opponent's Digimon and Tamers can't suspend until the end of their turn, so you could just kind of stun them for a turn, which is really good. And when its Digimon becomes suspended, you may unsuspend it. So if it does survive a check, it can get a second check because it's unsuspended. Then we've also got the 4 copies of the BT17 War Greymon and the BT17 Metal Garurumon. Both of these are in here because they are the main part of the Omnimon engine. When they would be played, if you have the relevant Tamer in play, so Tai for War Greymon and Matt for Metal Garurumon, you reduce the play cost of them by 3, which means they're coming out for a cost of 8. And then they both have an on play and when digivolving effect that has kind of two different effects in which you can choose between. The first one, which I'll kind of go over for both of them, is that technically it's the second one. If you've got a Gabumon or Agumon in play, you can warp that Digimon into its respective level 6. So Wargreymon will warp your Gabumons into Metal Garurumon, and Metal Garurumon will warp your Agumons into Greymon and into Wargreymon. And bearing in mind, if Greymon has either Agumon or Gabumon underneath it, it can be either of them, which means it's a target for both of them depending on your needs, which is really nice. Then on top of that, Wargreymon, instead, if you don't have a target for that warp, or if you don't want to warp, you could delete an 8 KLS, and Metal Garurumon will stun a Digimon or Tamer for the turn and stop it suspending. So both really nice. We've still got the 4 copies of Omnimon Ace. It is just, you know, still one of the best cards in the deck and is obviously the main part of the engine. Because of the whole DNA shenanigans, you want to make sure you're getting into the Omnimon Ace as much as possible. We've now taken out Omnimon Alter-S, unfortunately, just for kind of space. I'd be tempted to put it back in, because it is like our backup DNA target for both the end of turns and also Miraculous Mega Knight. So I would be tempted to put that back in, but for the time being, I'm pretty happy on this level 7 kind of line. But Omnimon Ace basically has raid and blocker, so you can use it aggressively or defensively. It will on play when digivolving. If you're DNA digivolving, you choose one Digimon, and then you bounce every other Digimon of the same level. It's quite a hard effect to kind of explain sometimes, just because of the convoluted way that it's worded. But basically it is, you choose a Digimon and then you bounce that, and then all other Digimon with the same level as the one you chose to the bottom of the deck, and then afterwards you also delete something. So it can come in really handy, you know, especially against decks that will have similarly leveled Digimon across the board. Then we've also got, of course, the Omnimon X from BT20, has raid, piercing, blocker, just all the keywords. On play when digivolving, if Omnimon or X Antibody is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, choose one or both Digimon and delete all other Digimon. Then return one of your opponent's Digimon to the bottom of the deck. So if Omnimon Ace has not managed to bottom deck everything, Omnimon X can probably finish the job. It is really good, you know, because it just, whereas this one bounces everything at the same level, this will then just delete everything that's left, and if there's one thing that didn't get deleted, it will get bounced. And the idea here is obviously you could go Omnimon Ace at the end of your turn, use your Time Mat to attack with your Omnimon, X Antibody to go to Omnimon X and get rid of everything. On top of that, you've also got the end of turn effect, which is one of your Digimon may gain rush for the turn and attack without suspending. So if you need to, so for example, if you had to hard digivolve into this, for example, then you can give it rush and go for it. Obviously, the main combo with that is the Omekamon from BT20 can warp into this if you've only got one security, but obviously we're no longer playing that Omekamon, but it can still work really well to help you get that extra little bit of chip damage in, because it is an end of turn attack. You know, essentially this would trigger at the same time as well, actually I don't know if they would trigger at the same time actually. End of turn effects are always a little bit weird, and you can only really get one attack in because they've got the same end of turn timing. So, you know, if you've already done your attacking with this, you can use your end of turn effect to make something attack in and get rush, is essentially it. But the main thing it's here for is just because it's a big beefy boy. We love French Omnimon, he is glorious, and he is here to stay. Then I've got the 2 copies of Omnimon Alter-B. I did take this out of my original BT20 build to facilitate more things, but I just found we really missed him because he's such a good, you know, kind of game finisher. You know, he digivolves one of your opponent's Digimon when digivolving on his, when he digivolves. Then you choose any number of your opponent's Digimon with so that their play cost is up to 6 and delete them, so you can delete a couple of rookies with that. But the main thing with him is this when attacking effect. You trash up to 3 level 6 or higher cards in this Digimon's Digivolution cards among your opponent's Digimon and Tamers, and delete one of their lowest play cost for each of card trash. So you delete something for each time you trash something. Then the more important effect is if you trashed 3 cards, you trash the top 2 cards of your opponent's security stack. So with the right stuff underneath, bearing in mind the level 6s, these guys, the B17 ones, do actually have inheritable effects, which I did not mention. Wargreymons is, it trashes a security if you've got Omnimon in name, and Metal Garurumons you unsuspend if you've got Omnimon in name. So if you've got the Wargreymon underneath you, this Omnimon Alter-B with that when attacking effect will be trashing 3 cards. which I don't know if you know the Digimon card game, guys, but is over half of the security normally, unless you're against like yellow. But you know, that can be really good to help close off the game. Your swing will then just become one for game in that case because you trash all the security. So it's just really potent, really strong, and just a fantastic card. I had to keep it back in. I am missing the fact I'm not playing Omnimon Bond of Courage because I was playing that in my EX8 version of the build. But at the same time, you know, it's we need to facilitate more of our Omnimon stuff because Omnimon is really the star of the show and the synergy of the deck. Then we've got 4 copies of Time Map from BT17. Had to keep this one in. It is probably the best Tamer we've got. All turns, when one of your Digimon is played or Digivolves, by suspending this Tamer, if you have a Digimon with Greymon in its name, you gain 1 memory, and if you have one with Garurumon in its name, you gain 1 memory. So if you've done your Warp shenanigans, and you've got a Metal Garurumon that was hard played, and a War Greymon that Digivolved on top of an Ogumon, you've got 2 of them there, you gain 2 memory, really good. Then end of turn, one of your Digimon with Omnimon in its name may attack a player. Like I said, that end of turn effect may conflict with your Omnimon X Antibody. You know, because if you're not passing... Essentially, the way to get 2 different end-of-turn effects to trigger is you need to pass turn back to yourself after you've triggered your first end-of-turn effect. So, like, really common one for that is in Tyrant Capitarimon, for example. Because you're doing the suspending and the bouncing at end of turn, if you manage to suspend and bounce an ace and you give memory back to yourself, then you can potentially give yourself a second end of turn, for example, which this can kind of happen in here actually. So if you were to kind of do your Omnimon Ace play, bottom deck, you know, aces, and you get your overflow, then you could go into your Omnimon X and use that end of turn effect. So you know, it can come up, but the time map, really good card. And speaking of time map, I've decided to put in, because I randomly my work does like a Secret Santa, but we had loads of illnesses all throughout December, so we didn't actually do our Secret Santa until this month being February. But whoever my Secret Santa was, because we didn't reveal who the Secret Santas were, got me a couple packs of BT5, which I thought was really, really cute, and I really appreciated that. And because I mean, BT5 is a great set to open. It's you know, really nice. And there were a couple of different staple cards I actually pulled that I needed, which was great, and this was one of them. So the great thing about this card is if your opponent has a level 6 or higher Digimon, at the start of turn you can gain 2 memory, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's enough to help mitigate some of our more expensive plays and kind of give us a bit more building room. Then it also has a your turn effect of all your Digimon with Omnimon in their name gain security attack +1. Now, because this is a one-of, that security attack +1 effect has not come up for me in testing as much, because usually we've chipped away too many security for that to be relevant. But in theory, if you got this out at the beginning of the game, having that security attack +1 means you can go into your Omnimon, which all of a sudden is going to be, you know, attacking at end of turn, trashing, you know, unsuspending, and then doing 2 checks, which means it's going to be, you know, doing 3 checks on its own essentially, which is pretty good. If you've managed to go even further than that, and you've managed to go Omnimon Ace into Alter-B, you're then doing 2 checks with your Time Map, you're doing a trash with your War Greymon, 2 trashes with the Alter-B, which means you're getting rid of 5 security. You then undersuspended with Metal Garurumon, which actually means we have a fairly unlikely OTK, but it is an OTK, which is not bad. That is pretty good. So long as they've got 5 security and no security bombs, that checks out. The other thing about this tie specifically is it's white, which is also why we are playing the BT7 tie and Kari again. I do kind of miss the searching I had from the BT15 mat that I was playing in my EX8 version, but this does help us a little bit in terms of our consistency. First of all turns when your breeding area is hatched in by suspending this Tamer gain 1 memory, which means when you're doing your Greymon shenanigans, if you've hatched, you can gain 1 off of that hatch, which is pretty nice. Then end of turn, by returning this Tamer to the bottom of the deck, you draw 1, and then you may play a Tamer with Tai and Kari in its name from your hand without paying the cost. You can kind of keep your deck a little bit, you know, less close to decking out with that kind of effect, and just play out your more useful, you know, Tamers, which is not bad at all. Then going into the options, I've gone down 1 copy of Miraculous Mega Knight. We're now only on 3, which is a shame because it is such a great card, but I wanted to fit in other stuff. So going down to 3 copies kind of made sense. And we don't really miss it too much, it not being at 4. We're still seeing it enough at 3. You get to, as a main effect, you play one Agumon or Gabumon from your hand or trash without paying the cost, then place this card in the battle area. All turns, when one of your level 6 Digimon with Greymon or Garurumon in its name would leave the battle area outside of a battle, delay, that Digimon and a card in the hand may DNA Digivolve into a Digimon card with Omnimon in its name in the hand. So it's just this, the moment it's on the field, changes how your opponent is going to play against you. Because all of a sudden, if you've got a War Greymon out, what if you've got the Metal Garurumon in hand? What if I delete this War Greymon? What if I try and bounce it? What if even if I DP reduce it? It doesn't matter. Because the War Greymon will then DNA and that 0 DP won't matter. You know, the only thing that will matter is if you attack into it. So if you suspend it, go for a piercing check or try and raid into it. But then the issue is you're then allowing the counterplay to come in. So it's a lose-lose situation. You can't attack in, you can't delete it, because either way, there's the possibility that an Omnimon's coming your way. So it just changes how your opponent plays. It's gross. It's a grim card. You know, and I think Omnimon has the potential to possibly be a lot better in the meta coming forward. And you know, it's just a fantastic card. It has a great security effect as well, just playing out a tile map from your hand or trash, and then you get to add this card to your hand so you can start your shenanigans. Then we've got 3 copies of Wisteria Memory Boost. I was playing 4 of this before, now only 3. Just helps you with your consistency, adding your blue or red cards, which one of our level 7s, one of our Omnimon X's is both blue and red, which is pretty good. Obviously the other ones are not, and there are a few cards that this Wisteria Boost can whiff on, but ultimately it's still a better searcher in general than the Garurumon, because it could just pick up the BT20 mat. Sorry, I'm very tired. I've got 3 videos to edit tonight. Yeah, the Wisteria just really helps. Gains your 2 memory on the delay as well, which is great. Then we've got X Antibody. Now this hasn't come up that much for me, just because it's harder to search in this and stuff like that. But the idea is you can put it underneath one of your War Greymons or Metal Garurumons, attack into them, go into your Omnimon X if you haven't been able to find your Omnimon, or if you've done the end of turn stuff, go Omnimon, swing in, and then go to Omnimon X to further just clear the board. You know, plus also gaining a memory from the security effect is pretty damn nice. You know, it's not bad at all. Then our last card to talk about is Last Guardian, and this is the reason why we've gone from playing the mat, the BT50 mat, and playing these white Tamers instead, because we've got quite a few different white colour sources. We've got the Greymon, these Tamers, some of our level 7s, and now Last Guardian is quite spenny in this versus it being played in Raw Knights, because Raw Knights you can reduce the cost of it, but ultimately it's still pretty good, and it has come up for me in testing. The searching effect isn't always that great, because we're only searching for our X Antibodies and our Omnimons, specifically the Royal Knight ones. Can't search Omnimon Alter-B because it's a Holy Warrior only, whereas the other 2 are both Royal Knights. But the all turns effect, when any of your Digimon with Omnimon in their names would leave the battle area, delay, one of those Digimon doesn't leave. Which, by the way, that, I think I said it in the last profile I did for Omnimon, that specific wording, one of those Digimon doesn't leave. I don't know why, it's just really hardcore. It's just really hardcore wording. But the great thing about this is literally the only thing that can remove you at that point is 0 DP. Because you can't exist as a 0 DP Digimon, so you'll not leave and then you'll just die anyway. But that does protect from deletion, bouncing, and battle. So I was testing today against my Chaosmon deck, swung in with my Omnimon Ace, and hit into an Ultimate Chaosmon, which is 1k bigger. And I was like, oh crap, that's a big amount of overflow. But then Last Guardian was on the field, so it just delayed, and it was like, he doesn't leave, he's fine, I guess. You know, the only other issue with this, though, is obviously the security effect doesn't really come up for us because we're no longer playing the Omekamon and the Cool Boy, but it still gets to place this in the battle area for free, which means that protection effect is live. So we can't take as much advantage of it as Royal Knights can, just because we're not playing the Omekamon and the Cool Boy, but it still does do a lot of things. As for the Omekamon and Cool Boy, I would love to try and shoehorn them in, but like I said earlier, they just don't really fit with the whole engine and what you're trying to do. But I'm quite liking this build. I'll keep trying to improve it. Any kind of suggestions you guys can make, just let me know in the comments below. Any seasoned Omnimon players who have been doing what I've done and, you know, printing out low-res samples to play proxies with, you know, let me know what's going on, and we'll see you for the next videos next week. But until then, keep it digital.